everybody stop.
We are ready to learn.
The important people are here. Let's go, guys.
Sponge
Watch out.
open.
Jim Winthrop comes in the front row. He can be a troublemaker.
Jim,
I came here to learn.
well, okay. Okay, well, hopefully we accomplish at least that.
I'm in the position.
Welcome.
Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming to listen to me for an hour. That's quite a feat.
And on.
My name is Kaz. I've been here for a while. Somebody made the unfortunate mistake of allowing me to be in charge of a team. We have the Making Frederick Home team. So, but I have come across a couple of things in the course of trying to set up systems and trying to make things run a little bit smoother within that team that I thought would be beneficial to you guys. So I figured I'd throw it out there, see if anybody wanted to come, and the rest is history, right? So the Folio actually was kind of introduced actually by Cindy about a year and a half ago. She sent out an email, blast email to everybody about this new kind of technological, thing that is available if we'd like to take advantage of it. And at that point, I think I opened up the email and I responded back like, holy crap, this is pretty cool. And it's a pretty useful thing. But at that point, I had really no idea the functionality of it and the capability of it. And, we get hit with so many shiny objects that, are for the low price of, $469 a year on an automatic renewal, which you always forget to turn that off by the end of the year. Hit with all these things. So, like, how cool is it actually? But Folio is one of those things that's actually free to get your feet wet with it. It's completely free to use, and you can really get a good sense of how it works, how it operates, and ways to integrate it into your business without paying a dime for it, which is pretty awesome. I honestly think that there's probably like 4 college kids in Monterey, California somewhere with like Cheetos stuck to their shirt that run this thing, because they're really responsive. Like if you have an issue and you type them like a little voice message or a little message on the thing, they'll respond back. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning. They'll respond back. So it's really good that way. But the way I kind of liken this, as I was thinking about this morning, you're supposed to have like an icebreaker, I guess, right before the class. That's what the military said, do an icebreaker at the very beginning. So my Timbuktu joke is borderline inappropriate. So
Watch your brokers in the room.
yeah. As soon as she walked in, I was like, yep, Timbuktu joke doesn't work. But
Thanks a lot.
you guys can get with me offline if you want to hear it. It's great. But this is something I think everybody can relate to. At least I hope so. Otherwise, it's going to make the rest of this hour really awkward. So I have this habit, and I have great intentions. I take all my laundry, and I throw it in the wash, and I'm like, I'm going to clean the entire house today. Like, I'm going to clean everything up, get all my stuff, organized, folded, ready to go, so that I start the week off on a great foot. So, goes in the morning. I get wrapped up in all the day's stuff, right? And at the end of the night, the last thing that I remember is that the wash is in the washer, and I need to get it in the dryer, right? So I go ahead and I put it in the dryer right before I go to bed, wake up the next morning, ready to go to work, remember that I have stuff in the dryer, but now it's wrinkled because it's been sitting overnight in the dryer. So now it's easier to go in the closet and find something that's been hanging up for a while than it is to go into the dryer and, unwrinkle all that stuff, right? So this process kind of happens usually until about Thursday. And by Thursday, I'm out of stuff in the closet, and I go into the dryer, and you have to run it like 3 or 4 times, for a 20-minute time cycle to de-wrinkle or whatever. Now they even have a setting that's meant for me to de-wrinkle all the stuff that's been sitting in there for 4 days. But what I've noticed is that when I put stuff on Thursday, then I kind of just doesn't have that. Chris.
I know.
Right. So and like you're walking around and you're like, you like meet somebody at the refrigerator and you're like, is that them or is that me?
Yeah.
Right? And you,
Following
Yeah.
them around, yeah.
the reason why I bring this up is, we had the best of intentions, right? And I kind of think that sometimes our business is kind of like that. You have the best intentions going into it. You just get so wrapped up with all the other things going on that at the end of the day, it kind of stinks, right? And that's not what we meant to do, but it's kind of just a byproduct of it. Busier that you get, more people that you're working with, the more your service aspect of your business starts to slip, and then you start getting people with like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know, what is happening this week. People are calling you left and right. It's 9 o'clock at night. You're getting blown up by text message. What time is this tomorrow? So on and so forth. So Folio is a very useful tool in preventing all that from happening. And if you set it up correctly, it will do everything for you without you having to do anything. You can literally take an hour of your time, set up templates for how a transaction normally goes. The minute that you get a contract, all you have to do is go in and just change the number of days, and it'll automatically take care of the rest for you. So it's really, really useful in the sense of dealing with 5, 6, 7 different contracts at the same time, working with buyers, working with sellers, and everybody going in 27 different directions, and us being one person with only 2 hands and only so many hours in the day. So that's kind of my introduction to all this, and from there, I'll kind of talk to you a little bit about how to kind of get it integrated into your system. So the one, I guess, caveat to this, and if people get up and leave, I'll understand. The one caveat to this is that this is a system that is meant to integrate with the Google Chrome internet browser. So if you are an Internet Explorer, Mozilla Firefox, Internet Edge, any of those web browsers, this will not integrate with it. Okay, this is just for Google Chrome. Now, Google Chrome is fantastic, but that's a completely, different class. So, if you don't have Google Chrome, I would say consider getting it. It works with, all the Appleossals, the apostles of Apple. It works with Apple. It works with Android. It works with, just about everything. The other cool thing about Folio is that it is able to integrate into Gmail. That's its primary, but it is also able to integrate into Microsoft Outlook. So if you have Outlook, it will work with Outlook. You just set it up with your Outlook email account instead of your Gmail account. It will integrate into your Outlook calendar as well as your Gmail calendar. So it's pretty handy those ways. All right, now, like I said, some of the Apple stuff it doesn't do, but for all intents and purposes, it's pretty user friendly. The other thing that's also good is that it also integrates with DocuSign, which is kind of cool because that's our primary go-to electronic signature program. And I know some agents use .loop, and some people have their own things, but for the ones that use Dropbox and DocuSign, this is pretty impressive. All right, so kind of keep that in mind as I kind of show you, some of the stuff here. So the website to actually get this started is home.amitree.com. Amitree is the company that works it. It's AMITREE.com. Obviously, there's a link right up there. Try Folio for free. You can, go ahead and click on that, and it will start to kind of set up everything for you. So I got another tab over here that is, what is this Folio thing? All right. So I'm going to play this little video here real quick. If you guys give me 1 second, and I will find it. And that will explain a lot better, and then we can kind of go over it and touch on a couple of things. Let's see if we can find it. Here, fingertips. Sorry, I should have had this loaded already. Apologize. We have sound on this, do you, Cindy?
Yes.
We need the remote, right?
This one?
Yeah, there you go.
You can turn it up on your,
You'll know that the extension is installed correctly because in the top right-hand corner of your browser, you'll see the Folio icon. After installing Folio, you'll be prompted to connect your Gmail account. That's necessary because Folio helps automatically organize your transactions, and to do so, it needs access to your Gmail. So I'm going to go ahead and collect my account. I'm going to go ahead and authorize Folio. Now, what's happening with Folio? The first Gmail assistant for real estate agents. To get started with Folio, open your Chrome browser and head to ametree.com.
Ametree.com.
There, you'll see an option to install Folio to your browser. I'm going to go ahead and click that, and then on this confirmation window, I'm going to go ahead and click Add Extension. You'll know that the extension was installed correctly because in the top right-hand corner of your browser, you'll see the Folio icon. After installing Folio, you'll be prompted to connect your Gmail account.
This is where you would use your
Folio helps
either your
automatically
Outlook
organize
account
transactions.
or your Gmail
To do
account.
so, it needs access to your Gmail.
It'll automatically pull up
So I'm gonna go ahead
Gmail.
and collect my
If you
account.
want to use your Outlook, you just add another account and type in your MSN or whatever
Kind
it
of
is. Yep.
another,
Now, what's happening is Folio is looking back through the last 30 days of emails I've received. It's looking for things it thinks are a transaction, and so that could be a listing agreement that was just signed, or a property that's gone into escrow. You'll then be taken into your Gmail account, where you'll notice this quick introduction to Folio. As I mentioned before, Folio automatically puts transaction emails in the right folder. Within those smart folders, you can easily find the related emails, contacts, files, and timeline dates in the one place. And then for each smart folder, you get a timeline website that you can share with your clients or anyone else you want to help keep track of the transaction. So I'm going to go ahead and close that.
All right, so I'm going to pause this here. So, a couple of key things here. So, as soon as you set up Folio, it's automatically going to start scrubbing your email inbox for the last 30 days. And they have, these guys in California have come up with algorithms, just like, everything else, for how to determine whether or not you are communicating with somebody about a real estate transaction. They also have the broker side of things now too, Sandy, just so that you know, for the Motto people. So now there's a complete separate program for mortgage lenders. But they're scrubbing anything that has anything to do with a property address, negotiations of a contract back and forth, documents that are attached to emails, trying to pick out, according to their algorithms, what looks like an email or a real estate transaction to the program. All right.
Kenneth, do you know if you've moved an email to a subfolder in your email, will it find it there too?
As long as it's still in the inbox, unless you've archived it.
Yeah, if you move it to a file, then you don't, it's not in the inbox anymore.
Well, it is still in the inbox unless you've archived it.
Okay,
Okay, so when you archive it, it pulls it out of the inbox and puts it into the folder that you stored it in.
right.
All right, but so in that case, it won't. It's going to scrub your inbox for transactions. I mean, for me, like I have 26,000 emails in my inbox. It's really ridiculous. So it's kind of helpful in those sense, in that sense.
So you should leave it in your inbox for a couple days so you can pull it out.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say, and there's another way that you can actually set it up manually, so I can show you that too. So it's too easy. It's only about 6 minutes total this video, so it's not too time consuming.
Now, when I get into my inbox, you'll notice that Folio is searching for recent transactions. As I mentioned before, it's looking back over the last 30 days. When Folio finds a transaction,
Where's your volume at?
it's not.
I think it's buffering or something.
Oh, that's interesting. The video's still playing here.
Oh.
Did your connection loosen up a little bit?
I don't think so. Cindy said.
Cindy said, it was last month.
Cindy did say.
Cindy said, plug it in.
Cindy did say.
Do you have an HDMI port?
Yeah, I do.
Wanna
Try
try
that route.
Are we
With
doing
this.
this, via Bluetooth versus the HDMI?
network.
Yeah, it's just,
HDMI port, there's always works better.
it's because all those deals that we got going on right now, everybody's, all those emails. I'm not 100% sure how that's gonna work, but
You probably have to go to source. Switch it.
here you go, you can, if you can do that.
Intermission.
Intermission.
Won't take long.
So, once it starts scrubbing your email communications, you're gonna see in two different spots. Yeah. Yeah, you leave it there now.
Shameless plug
So
right
click
there.
on-
No?
Yeah. What's your screen like? Connecting. Yeah, you got it.
Is that better?
Back over the last 30 days. When Folio finds a transaction, you'll notice it show up in two places. It'll show up in the left-hand column under the Folio label, and it'll also show up in the Folio button. All right, so let's get started creating your first transaction. So I'm going to go ahead and click into 895 Climb Drive. And once you're in a Smart Folder, you'll notice a few things. The first is that it contains all of the email received in the last 30 days that contained 895 Climb in either the subject, body, or attachment. You'll also notice this sidebar on the right. This contains access to the timeline, so it shows all of the important dates you've added to the transaction. It gives you quick access to all the contacts who are included in this Smart Folder, as well as access to the files that were contained in any emails that are part of this Smart Folder. When you first click into a transaction, Folio prompts you to set it up with a few quick, easy steps. The first is that Folio needs to figure out which side of the transaction you represent. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and click the buyer. After that, Folio needs to help figure out who is involved in this transaction. So that's the client, as well as anyone else you're working with. In this case, Adele is the buyer, but I also see that Katrina, who is my TC, is listed. So I'm going to go ahead and identify her. I'm going to go ahead and click continue. Now you're prompted to set up the key dates for the transaction. Because this is a buyer-side transaction, the two key dates are the offer accepted and closing date. I'm going to go ahead and enter those in. The offer accepted in this case was the first of the month, and the closing date was the end of the month. I'm going to go ahead and click continue. What's happened now is that those changes I've made are reflected in the Folio sidebar, in addition to being synced to my Google Calendar. Now let's go ahead and click through to the timeline website. Every Smart Folder you create comes with a timeline website. This is something that you can choose to share with anyone who needs to keep track of the transaction. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and set up the timeline website so that I can share it with my client. Now, when you get to the timeline website, you'll notice a few things. The first is that it has an image of the property, and that's pulled out from Google Street View, but you can actually change it to whatever you like. Because I've set my key dates, at the top of the timeline website, it notes the number of days until closing, and highlights the next upcoming date. In this case, is only closing, as I haven't actually added the dates yet. Looking further down, you can see those two dates that we previously added to the timeline, but you'll also notice some suggestions showing up below. I'm going to go ahead and add the inspection date. And the inspection deadline was 10 days from offer accepted. It was happening at 3 p.m. The status was pending. I'm just going to put a note that John will be performing this. I'm going to go ahead and click save. Now you'll see that date showing up on my timeline website. I'm going to pause now while I fill out the rest of the dates. And a few minutes later, we have a really rich timeline website that's complete and ready to be sent out to my clients.
All right, so can I take a break here for a second too? So one of the great things about this is that you can literally enter in any person that is a part of the transaction. You can, and Bobby Prescott is perfect at this. She does it way more thorough than I do. but Bobby will include the other agent into the transaction so that the other agent is seeing the same exact thing in that timeline that you're seeing. And this is kind of what I talked about as little bullet points that when we're trying to minimize confusion on contingency dates within the transaction, because the other agent has access to those contingencies just like you do, just like your clients do. You don't have to do that. You can share it with really whoever you want. We have staged above our home stager. She gets included on all of our listing timelines so that she can see when the property goes under contract. She can see what date it's expected to close, and their office can back plan off of that to destage the property before settlement goes on. Also appraisal. She likes to have the staging in the home through appraisal. So once she knows that appraisal has been completed, she sees that I've changed it from pending to completed, she knows they can go ahead and schedule the D-stage of the property. So one way that you can, kind of integrate your business partners, your lenders, whoever it is that you have, even, whoever it is, the title company, you can add anybody that you want into it, and it's only going to get smarter as you add more people in there. It learns as you go through the transaction. So as it sees, other people being included in emails, it's going to start asking you, is this person a part of the transaction? Should we add this person into it? Do they need to be notified of the timeline? So it's kind of a constantly evolving, thing to make your life easier and keep everybody, on the same sheet of music.
Kaz,
Yes.
can you pick and choose which things on the calendar that person sees? Like the title company may not need to know when the home inspection is, but they do
Yeah.
need to know when the appraisal is, or, can you?
Though I think what it allows you to do on the other side of it is once the timeline is shared, the person on the other side can open up the timeline, review it, and they can pick and choose things that they want to add to their calendar.
Okay,
So, so that they don't get every single thing. In my case, I don't need to know when Michelle's home inspection is going to be necessarily, but I do want to know when her inspection contingency is up. So that I can, in our meeting, say, hey, your inspection contingency is up. Do you have everything you need for this? Are we good? Is the client happy with, the results? So they can do that. They can pick and choose that.
okay.
Yeah. Anybody else?
So if I'm the lender, is it sending, and I'm included in the list, is it sending me an email saying, hey, the financing contingency date's approaching, or it's here, or?
Yeah, if you're included into the transaction, the timeline is being shared with you if they choose to share it with you. And then you can, once you get that email that this timeline has been shared with you, you can open that up and select which dates you want to know. If there's a change to those dates, you would get an email that says, Kaz has made a change, to this date. But you wouldn't get overburdened with, all the parts that you didn't need to know about. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah,
Okay. Just want to make sure.
thank you.
You're welcome.
So you'll note, I've added a number of dates with status to mention the things that have been completed, the things that are pending, and any other status that I would choose to add. I've also added notes for my clients for certain events that need a little bit of planning. So, in addition to my timeline, there's two other aspects to this timeline website. The first is service providers, where I'm able to provide links to my preferred inspectors, contractors, appraisers, and so on. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and add my inspector. Go ahead and save that. Now, what that means is my client will have access to the inspector's information. Below the service providers, you'll see the resources. Resources are essentially tools that we make available for clients to use. In this case, there are a few default tools that Amateur provides. They include change of address, so the official USPS form, a cable and internet lookup service, helping your clients figure out which service providers they can use in their new neighborhood, as well as an online insurance quote generator. You can choose to leave those there, you can choose to add others that you prefer. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and add the electricity company. I'm going to go ahead and save that. And now you'll notice that show up on the right. Before sharing this out, I'm going to go ahead and click this icon in the bottom right-hand corner. This lets me see exactly what this timeline will look like for my client. So I'm going to click that. Now, once I share this, this is exactly what my client will see. They'll have access to the events, any notes that I've left, as well as can see the service providers and resources I've added. If I click one of them, you'll see the information show up. That all looks great, so I'm going to go ahead, switch back to my view, and I'm going to go and share that now with my client. So I'm clicking share. I see that both my transaction coordinator and my client are on this list. That looks great. I'm going to customize the message that they receive. And I'm going to go ahead and click send. And what that'll do is send both of those individuals an email containing a link to the Timeline website.
All right, stop here again. So the resources page is one of the things that I actually love, and I would love to dig into it a little bit more. It's just a matter of actually sitting down and getting it. But you know, how many times have we had a client that's like, what cable company comes out here? Who's the gas company? Who is the, you know, who is the, you know, the electricity, the electric company? Or asks you about, this is the good one, asks you about schools. What are the best schools in the neighborhood? And obviously we can't say what the best schools are. But what I have is I have greatschools.org as a resource in here. And you can have the criminal sexual offender website here. Now talk about, you know, giving your clients tools as they're in the purchase process, you know, as they're even looking for homes, to make it a little bit easier for them to look up what schools are rated on greatschools.org.
So where do you
You
put
put them
that?
in before they're under contract.
In the resources, right, exactly. You can set this up, and that's what I was kind of saying, you can set this up so that the minute, now you don't, one of the things that it didn't kind of say is that you don't have to have a transaction in order to create a folder. There's two kinds of folders. There's a transaction folder, and then there's a client folder. So what we've started doing is now the minute that we have a buyer representation agreement or a listing, you know, agreement signed, we go ahead and set up the smart folder for them and get it out to them, so that as we're looking, you know, at properties, even if they have a timeline that they want to be moved in by, you can backdate a timeline off of that. If they have, you know, a certain deadline that they need to move by, like in the case of somebody that is under a lease, you can kind of put that date into their timeline and show them, you know, hey, look, this is where we're at. So go ahead.
Do the client folders, is there a cost associated with how many clients you build into it?
So yeah, and we'll get into that a little bit when we start talking about the plans. But yeah, there is after a certain number. So initially, the free version of Folio will allow you to do 3 at one time, 3 active folders. So that's the capability of it. Like I said, it allows you to kind of get your feet wet with it before you decide to go ahead and fully integrate it. That's it.
So there's a transaction folder and then there's a client folder?
Yes,
So
there's
what's the difference between the two?
a client folder would be just that there's no specific property address. You're not putting in dates like you know, under contract date. You're not putting in you know, estimated closing date. So those, you know, those dates you're not gonna need to worry about those. It's
Okay.
just a way to organize your
Those.
communications with those buyers or with, you know, those clients, and get yourself kind of on the way towards, you know, changing that over to a transaction folder, which is just literally the click of a button.
Okay, thanks.
When these different parties access the timeline, where is that timeline found at? I assume it's not on your computer?
So you will
You're
have
creating it, but where's
yeah.
it found at? Where are they going to get it?
They would go to their email, because the email is going to be sent to them that says you know, Kaz has set up a timeline, has shared with you a timeline.
So then as the timeline's amended, it sends it out as a new email to them?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So each time
Yep.
they're getting, I mean, I'm assuming they don't have access to your email, they're
No,
just
no.
getting what you send them.
It goes into their email, and then each time you make a change, they get an updated email that says, Kaz made a change to this, Kaz changed the status of this to pending. And this is one of the things where, you know, there's maybe a perception that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, we are monitoring everything that is going on in every person's transaction, you know, and that we're, you know, oversight of every single thing every minute of the day, because why wouldn't we be, right? There's no such thing as, you know, time away or putting the phone down, right? But this is a way that makes it really easy, with just a click of a button, to update something to completed. and let your clients know, because they're gonna get that email.
Yeah.
Let your clients know that even though you're not in direct communication with them that day, you are still working on their transaction. Like their transaction is still going through the process. And you can do that at your leisure. So I like it for that, because they do get it, that gentle reminder that, hey, my agent is working for me, even when he's not directly contacting me or calling me, he's still working on my stuff, making sure everything's good.
So you're just having, let's say, general correspondence with your client that you have a transaction in play with, right? They email you, they have a question, blah, blah, blah. When does it automatically get attached to that transaction, or does it ask you if you want it attached? How does that work?
No, it will classify everything that comes back and forth from that client.
Okay,
Once you enter in those emails, like, hey, this is a client I'm working with,
okay,
everything that comes to your email from that client is going to get put in that Folio folder. Everything, which is really nice, because sometimes, you do go back and forth 10 or 15 times, and we'll talk about the archive here at the end of this, where, if you have to go back 5 years from now and try to find a communication that you had with that buyer, everything is saved in your Folio archive. So you can literally go find the address of the property, click on it, and everything that had to do with that transaction is saved and stored in there for you. Does that answer it?
it does answer it, yes.
What about in the case of the agents? Like, okay,
No,
so I do a deal with
I'm-
Lisa, and then I've invited her,
Um,
and then that closes, and then we have another deal. So
Right.
she's taking our buyers in my listing, and she emails me. Does it distinguish which property? Like,
Yes,
okay,
yes, because it's looking for documents that you've sent back and forth that pertain to that property address. It's looking for, anything that has to do with that transaction. It's categorizing that way.
okay.
So it's categorizing everything separately.
So if we've had a previous transaction together.
Yep.
The transaction finishes.
Yep.
What do you do with it? You archive it?
You archive it, yep.
Okay, so now we start having
Gotcha. I
an
didn't know about
interaction
the archive.
again,
Yep.
right?
Okay.
Yep.
So now it's looking at the
Yeah.
new.
Yeah.
And remember also, once you start working with those clients on a new transaction, you're entering in information about a new property address with a new set of clients. So it's categorizing that completely separately.
Yeah, so it's gotta be archived.
Yeah,
I didn't know anything
Yeah.
about that part.
I mean, it doesn't have to
It doesn't-
be archived,
Well, you would want to.
but you could,
You would
well,
want
you
it to
might
be.
have 2 or 3 at the same time that you've invited Lisa to.
yeah. Yeah, and the archive is good because it pulls it out of your inbox. So it's not one of 25,000, that are sitting in there.
22,000.
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
So this might be a dumb question, but when you
Never
go
dumb
to your
question.
inbox and you see all the new emails are at the top or whatever, when you set it up like this, do you have to go into each folder to see what emails are new? That
No.
day?
No, everything is still gonna go into your inbox just like it normally would. This is almost like an additional layer.
Okay.
So if you know a lot about Gmail, you know that Gmail can tag certain things. It tags anything that comes from a marketing system, it tags them as promotions.
Right.
Anything that's a follow-up, it tags them as follow-ups, like you've had a conversation before, or updates. And then you have your general inbox, right? So this is almost another layer of tagging those emails, and you'll see it on the actual email. It literally has a tag on there that says Folio 123 Main Street, so that when you archive those, it pulls them out of your inbox completely and puts them in that Folio archive